You're a self-confessed cryptocurrency fanboy. You've been investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies for years. You've obviously experienced all of the rises and falls in value. Is it ever going to settle down and become a stable asset?
Sure. Fanboy's funny language, but I'm certainly an advocate. But
I was going to ask if that was it.
Yeah. Do I think the volatility is going to settle down? Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think that there's a really interesting book written by a guy called Nicholas Taleb, who wrote the book Black Swan. He wrote a book after that called Anti-Fragile, where he talks about stresses actually becoming making products and markets more robust. So as opposed to less robust. So in the instance of Bitcoin, stresses might be considered volatility or regulation or attempts to hack it or just collective consciousness at whole. And these stresses actually, make Bitcoin stronger. So, to speak in a more literal sense, essentially what's happening as Bitcoin matures is that people who own cryptocurrencies, in particular Bitcoin, are swapping from unsophisticated hands to more sophisticated hands. And why that happens is because the earliest adopters of cryptocurrency are usually early crypto adopters, early internet people who are on Reddit, people who are, have smaller amounts of money, but they're willing to take a bet. But as that product matures, those people sell because they realize they can now buy their house, or they can buy two houses, or they can make sure their girlfriend has a girlfriend. And so as that process happens, that was a joke, sorry guys. And as that process happens, the people who take it on are the institutions. And that's what's happening right now. And as you alluded to in your intro, people like Paul Tudor Jones and Stanley Druckenmiller and some of the other biggest names ever in Wall Street history are now publicly long on Bitcoin, and longer on Bitcoin than gold. So this is a long answer, but that's what creates that backstop. That's what creates that stability. And we're watching it happen. We're watching it happen right now.
So you've mentioned that it's Bitcoin is the currency. It's the 8th biggest currency on the planet, I think, isn't it?
I actually looked that up before. It's actually the 3rd biggest currency in the world after the euro and the US dollar, and that was published by Deutsche Bank. So Bitcoin makes up about 40% of the total value of US dollars on the planet. So yeah.
That is extraordinary. Well, I mean, it's been spooked by people like Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey when we had the conversation early, and I think there's a figure out that the compound growth rate in the compound growth rate is around 30% between now and 2026.
The compound growth of Bitcoin, do you mean?
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a real figure or not, but anyway, tell us, what do you think then are the main applications for us with Bitcoin? Should we all be investing in it?
I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so that's completely up to you guys. what you guys do with your money.
Answer.
But
Good answer.
But am I optimistically long, or to put it a better way, am I irresponsibly long? Absolutely. So what you guys do with your money is completely up to you. But why? What are some of the reasons why someone would make up an investment thesis that's long Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general? So, to me, it's just such a big idea. It actually blows my mind. Like when people actually say to me, why has this thing got value or whatever, it's almost like a daunting thing for me to answer, because it's just, to my eyes, the biggest idea that ever was created. You're essentially talking about a money that, or a store of value that is not controlled by anyone. It is controlled by the people. It is unsilenceable. You can't shut it down. So you now have a share of value, a medium that is collectively owned. And then on top of it, it has a finite scarcity, which is and is not only finite in theory like gold or oil, but is mathematically finite. We know how much exists. Programmed in. So then you couple that on top of the fact that, with this rampant price appreciation, other market factors like people just, it's just an incredible platform, really. And I'm not sure if it will ever be used truly as a currency. I think it's far more like gold, and that's not by accident. If you look at a lot of the language around Bitcoin, like mining and scarcity, they're all qualities that gold has had and valuable. And Bitcoin is essentially product that represents all those sort of qualities that gold's had for thousands of years. But then, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, you look at Ethereum. Ethereum is not a currency. It's not competing to be what Bitcoin is. Ethereum is the base layer of a new internet. It gives you the tools. It gives builders the tools to build applications that have no central interface. So, think about, if you think about Facebook, Google, FANG, all these companies, they control all their data. That's your data. In a decentralized model, you control your own data. You have the ability to sell that back to the network if you want to. That data is valuable and it's yours. And if you at this point, if you don't understand.
So can you explain that you've opened up a really big subject there, and I know actually our next guest Mike's going to talk about this as well. So can you explain the connection there between my data and Ethereum?
Yeah, totally. So with this centralized application, like anything, like Skype that we're using right now, or Google, or anything like that, when you sign the terms and conditions, you give them your data. They now have it. They can do whatever they want, right? And that becomes the most powerful fuel. It's not that, even if you are paying $2 a month or whatever, it's insignificant compared to the data, because that is the real market. That's what they really want. That's why Facebook is free. That's why Twitter is free. They're not good blokes. They're doing it because they want your data. And once they have your data, they can predict human behavior like 99.9% based on a 2010 study, which then leads to advertising and all these other things, yada, yada. We all understand. I'm not going to go into that. When you go onto an application on Ethereum, there is no centralized server. There is no centralized server. The data is spread all over the Ethereum network. So what that means is no one has direct access to your data. What they do have access to is what your wallet does on Ethereum. So your wallet can be seen, because a blockchain is obviously a ledger. If someone was to look up your wallet, they could see what you're interacting with and at what size and whatever. But they don't know what you're searching, for instance. They don't know what TV shows you're watching, or like what cereal you like, and they shouldn't. That information is rightfully yours. And if you want to give that to someone, if someone finds it valuable, which a lot of corporations do, well, then you should have the ability to sell it to them. And that's what blockchains allow you to do. They allow you the optionality to sell something that is rightfully yours, not have it taken away from you and then monetized in the background.
Right. Okay. Any questions, guys?
Super interesting. Not so much with Ethereum, but certainly we see with Bitcoin moving sort of closer and closer and closer, and being adopted further into like the existing financial organizations, financial systems, things like that. I read just today that PayPal are going to be accepting Bitcoin, so that people can turn it into a fiat currency and then pay for goods like that through PayPal in that way. So do you see a kind of coming, collision between traditional finance and blockchain or Bitcoin?
I don't think a collision's the right word, because I don't think you can stop Bitcoin or Ethereum or any blockchain. And when you understand how a decentralized network of nodes work, you'll realize that you can't stop it. You can't stop every node that has it. So collision, I don't think is the right word, but I think that they're going to have to work together. Well, absolutely. It's already happening. Like, you look at Tesla. Tesla's just bought $1.5 billion worth. PayPal, as you say, is allowing it to be used as a gateway. I think it's only a matter of time before. I mean, Jack Dorsey through SquarePay is actually the biggest money benefactor. He's the person contributing most money in the world to Bitcoin development. So to think that Twitter is going to one day accept Bitcoin is obviously pretty obvious. And then, I mean, Zuckerberg, that's not enough for him. He's building his own cryptocurrency, right? So it's not a matter of do I think it's going to happen. It's already happening. Yeah, but the thing is, and this is an important point as far as delineation, Bitcoin, I don't think will ever become a payment layer. I think it will be always. I think it has so much more price discovery in it left before that ever happens, if it ever does happen. And can you still hear me? Yeah, cool. And then if you actually look at volumes in crypto, Bitcoin or Ethereum are not the most traded. The most traded assets in the world in crypto are actually stable assets like Tether and USDC, which are actually just US dollars. US dollars traded on blockchains. Now, the reason for that is because they can allow remittance, like paying people back like in another country, or paying wages, or receiving money for services done. And so you're by circumventing the banks, it's faster, cheaper, you name it. So Bitcoin, in my opinion, is not necessarily a direct one-for-one threat to US dollars or Australian dollars, but stable coins absolutely are, because they're better. They're the exact same thing, but they're better. So if you're a large business or an international business, I actually just did a seed round actually for my own company, and I received money from all over the world, and 90% of the money I received was in stable coins. So why would you not use something that's superior and it's cheaper? So I think that the hybrid nature of those worlds is certainly already underway. And to me, there's only one clear winner, because one's simply better than the other one.
So you've obviously invested a lot of time, energy and effort, Dion, in this area. And you just mentioned that you're starting up a business in this area. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
I'm not sure if it's much of an exclusive, but you guys actually have the exclusive on what I'm up to, because I've sort of been in camera. But yeah, I have just started my own business called loader.com.au at the moment, which is effectively the crypto bank of Australia. So we will be able to accept crypto as collateral and allow you to lend you money, which you then can go and do whatever you'd like with. So obviously, if you're holding crypto at the moment, you would need to sell it. That might create a capital gains event. Again, I'm not a tax advisor, so I don't know. But then you would have to then use money. So by using it in a long to then go and buy real world assets or whatever else. So that's stage one. Stage two, is more ambitious, and that's trying to solve uncollateralized lending. So that's lending people money without them putting up collateral. And a lot of people think that's impossible in crypto because of the anonymous nature of it, but we don't think it is. And there's a few other people around the world who don't think so either. So I'll have to leave you hanging on that a little bit for now. But yeah, we're looking forward to having a product to the market pretty soon.
Great. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Can't see that and learn more about that. I did have a quick question Dion, that's probably a little bit more high level. I'm a big believer in blockchain technology purely for its distributed nature. But it does have, at the same time, it's supposed to be kind of fair. It is, you know, there's all these kind of data mining pools and things like this that essentially, that's incredibly, they get a lot of reverb, it's incredibly distracting.
You just love listening to your own voice.
Just after I've said it, So there's these different organisations that'll come together and pool their resources to be able to mine transactions to get priority over you know, Joe Blow down the road. So giving them priority, meaning that they end up with most of the reward as the coins are minted. So and then same even with proof of stake model as well, where it's really any organisation with a more reputable, you know, they've essentially got more cash in the bank to be able to have their vote or their say. Does that provide a level playing field in your mind, or?
Well, I mean, blockchains are pretty amazing. They can do a lot of things, but they haven't been able to solve capitalism just yet. You know, so that's still the world. That's still the world we live in. That's still the market we live in, and unfortunately, those who have the most generally have the ability to make the most as well, and even more so in a market like crypto because it's decentralized and we can't, you know, the network has to work out who we can trust. The way that game theory works is that those who have the most to lose are the most trustworthy because they are the ones who have the most to lose, right? So they're going to be least likely because they have they have the most to lose from the network failing.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess it was an interesting point around, I know we've got to keep moving, but around the innovation, you know, I think that kind of distributed nature of it does, and like it's this kind of awkward part where the capitalism does actually have an opportunity from the more democratic approach to distributed data, which is, I think that's a good segue to chat with Mike and get into that.
It's a subject we're going to come back to again and again, I think, on the DV show. It's absolutely fascinating. Dion, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, and good luck with the new business. We'll all be going online after this show to look up loader.com.au and following your progress.
Excellent. Thanks so much for taking the time with me today, guys. It's a great show. Ciao.
Not at all. Take care.
Thanks, mate.
Right, so moving right along, we're going to have to do a little bit of a shuffle with the chairs here. Do you want to?
Can we get rid of these things?
We can now get rid of our earpieces, which is a relief to everybody. Not least Mike, who's been sitting there listening to us talking and not knowing what the hell we're talking about for the last 40 minutes. So 1 in 4 of us has experienced identity theft, resulting in financial or pure data loss, or not to mention the emotional stress. Our passwords are the single biggest vulnerability in our online data world and our identity. There's a Sydney-based company seeking to solve this problem with some really groundbreaking tech. So I'd like to welcome Truth CEO and founder, Mike Simpson.
Thanks, Bob.
Great to have you, Matt.
Good to see you,
Great
mate.
to have you here, Mike.
Yeah.
So first of all, Mike, let's understand the scale of the problem. We had a conversation earlier, and you mentioned that 1 in 4 of us have had our identities stolen online. Is this just down to vulnerabilities with passwords, or will bad actors always find a way to hack us?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me onto the illustrious panel. I think it's fair to say that the bad actors are always going to be out there and always going to find a target. But passwords are an easy target. So we've got 4 of us on the panel. If the stats are true, 1 of us has been lost our identity online. Well, there's 3 of us there.
Okay.
So yeah, it is a big problem, and it's a problem not just for consumers, it's a problem for enterprises as well. But at the individual consumer level, most of us are unaware of having our identity stolen until maybe a year or 2 years down the track, maybe 6 months down the track, when you go to do a new job, or you go to get a credit report, or the bank calls you and tells you that there's some suspicious activity happening. And yet it is very prevalent within society.
Yeah. So you mentioned there that it applies to consumers as well as the commercial sector. I know we're going to talk about some specific examples in a minute. So how do you see this playing out for the commercial sector? Because I think you mentioned that 60% of small, medium-sized businesses that get hacked within a year or so are either out of business or in dire straits.
Yeah, they're out of business. So
wow.
If they've been hacked, it's very tough to recover. Not surprising, because you think about the costs that it imposes on a business, the cost of compliance, the cost of reputation damage.
Yeah.
I was just looking up earlier today some more stats about that.
Yeah.
And about 47% of businesses have been either hacked or hit with some form of cyber attack over the last 12 months. Now, of course, it depends on what survey you look at. The numbers do vary quite a bit, but it's quite profound, and it's growing every year. And so for those that are hacked, obviously there's a massive cost to bear. For those that aren't hacked, there's also a cost to bear, because the cost of compliance is growing every year in order to mitigate the risk of those attacks.
Yes.
But when you think about the small and medium businesses, they're less prepared. So there's another stat which I read this morning, which said that 15% of SMBs are ready and cyber resilient.
Right. Only 15%.
Only 15%.
It doesn't surprise me, actually.
The other 85 are in trouble. So there have been some very high-profile hacks recently in the press. We heard about 9 who suddenly were hacked after they'd done a program on China or Russia. Sorry, I wonder if there was any connection there. And Toll, of course, last year was another high-profile one. What can you tell us about that?
You wake up every morning and there's literally another press report about a high-profile company that has been hacked, or the big trend at the moment is ransomware. And that's a real challenge for them, because it locks up all of their systems. They're simply unable to operate as a normal business while they have the ransomware hanging over them. That was certainly the case for Toll.
And what kind of information, are they looking for information, or are they looking to just stall business, as a competitive advantage, or are they looking for the data, or what's a lot of the motivation behind these attacks?
Well, it varies. In the case of ransomware, it's pure monetary reward. So they're holding the business to ransom, and generally they want to get paid in Bitcoin. And as soon as they get paid, of course, then the ransomware goes away. But the business has no guarantee at that point that they won't come back again. So it's a real catch-22 for them. And so as a result, we only hear about the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of businesses that are hit with ransomware will never announce it to the market unless they have to.
Which is what happened with Ubiquity. We looked at their case study. So they got hacked in December. They only began to start telling their customers about it in January?
Yeah, early January, I think, and really downplayed the scale of the attack and the level to which it had affected their customers, because obviously that is a huge reputational risk, because they're in the IoT business, they sell devices that are in people's homes, and suddenly I think all of their customers would be feeling vulnerable. It wasn't just in homes as well, they sold into corporate organisations as well. And that was from somebody getting a password.
LastPass, I believe.
LastPass. So I don't think anybody's saying that LastPass has somehow become technically vulnerable. It might have been guessed or maybe socially engineered out of somebody. But however, 1Password has led to basically a very large global organisation's customers being put at risk.
Which is incredible amazing. When you think about it. It can't just come down to that one master password.
Yes.
There was that other, what was it? It was a few weeks ago that of the password that an intern. What was that? That guy that they put in kind of
password 123.
Yeah.
Well, it's surprising. I'm no different from the average person out there in terms of the way I use passwords.
Right.
About 50% of us use the same passwords across all of our accounts, which of course is a big no-no. And we don't change them when we, as frequently as we should. Basically that's founded on passwords, it's always going to be the weak link in the chain.
Yes.
So we have to move beyond it.
Yes.
Fortunately, there are moves at hand where we are moving beyond it. There's a global organisation called FIDO2 that are replacing passwords with user biometrics. And so all the big heavyweights, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they've all signed up to it. And so that's great news. Through time, over the next year or two, you'll see more and more of your devices enabling you to use your biometrics and replace passwords completely.
So we see it obviously on mobile devices already, where you can use your face recognition to open your phone and get access to apps, etc. What is it that your business is doing to try and solve this problem, Mike? Yeah,
so our point of difference is that we don't believe that Apple and Google and Microsoft should own your biometrics. We're a little bit similar to Dion. Yeah. We're big believers in democratization of data, allowing you to own your biometrics, allowing you to choose when you want to use them to authenticate yourself and replace passwords. And so as a result, what we've built is what we call the Truth Platform. And the Truth Platform basically enables you, empowers you to use your face, your voice, your fingerprint to authenticate yourself and replace passwords for all of your online interactions.
So you're bringing all of those things together in one app, the voice, the face, and
That's right. And so basically a user can decide which one they're more comfortable with, or if it's a very secure, very high-risk interaction, they can use all three to make sure that there's the top level of security.
Okay, and how are you approaching it? Are you creating this platform for individual users, or is it for companies? How is it going to get to market?
Well, it will be both eventually. At the moment, we're very focused on the enterprise stream, so delivering what's called identity and access management services to enterprises to enable them to take their customers and their employees along a passwordless journey. And so what we've built out over the last couple of years are all of the, if you like, the foundation building blocks of that solution for enterprises. But now that we've built that foundation, we can go direct to consumers as well and give them access to an app where they have the ability to use their biometrics.
And how is this going to help that democratization piece exactly?
Well, you can imagine an environment, let's cast our minds forward a couple of years. Before I do that, I'll just give you one little statistic. At the moment, Google makes around about $500 million a day out of our data.
Wow.
And so it's a really weird model, right? And Facebook are right behind them, by the way. And if you boil all of that down and you say, okay, well, how much are they making out of your data per day or per month? It's not a huge amount because it's spread across, hundreds of millions of users. But it still amounts to, depending on the way that the assumptions you make, the analysis you do, somewhere between $10 and $20 a month for the average user. So, not immaterial. And depending if you're a very intensive user, it's going to be a lot more than that. And if you're willing to share more data, for example, like your biometric data, not necessarily your face and your voice, but your genome, all of that underlying information that can be very valuable for medical research, then that number gets manifold, 10, 20, 100 times higher. Right. So the data is inherently valuable, and we know that because the biggest companies on Earth have made a business out of that data. But ultimately, it is our data, and what we believe in is the ability to reclaim that data, link it to a digital identity that we control, that we manage, and then if we decide to also then monetize it on our terms. Sure. And if you are monetizing, the key there is to have that transparency of who's using my data at any point in time.
Yeah. How do you approach that issue around people actually owning their biometric data, since you're providing the service and the facility for actually doing the measurement and doing the verification? So is that data going to sit on my app or on your sort of platform, or where would it be?
So we believe in giving users the choice. If they want to have it encrypted on their device, good luck to them, that's great. If they want to be device agnostic, therefore, I can authenticate myself, on this laptop or your mobile phone or my mobile phone, then it needs to be a cloud-based solution. And in that case, there needs to be multiple layers of defense to protect from what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, where someone can capture, that biometric data. And so what we do is we have 4 layers of defense. We do what's called salting of the underlying biometric binary. That means injecting false information into it. Then we fragment it into many different parts. We encrypt each fragment, and then we shard those fragments onto different trusted servers. One of those trusted servers could be your actual device, your mobile device, but you can also, it's very similar to the blockchain mantra of federated identity and having multiple trusted parties.
So is that something you could actually, use the blockchain for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's perfect application of blockchain. Yeah. In fact, I would argue that NFTs, perhaps the single biggest use case for an NFT is around your own personal data.
You couldn't get any more non-fungible than that, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
A technical term, what does non-fungible mean for our audience?
Well, it's like you can't, it's unique essentially. Like it's...
or untradeable.
Yeah.
Untradeable.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't buy a chocolate bar.
So you can change a Bitcoin for a Bitcoin, but you can't
So it stands for
change an NFT for another NFT.
non-fungible token?
Yeah.
Indeed.
So how long before we're going to be passwordless, Mike?
Well, if you want to go with the FIDO2 solution with Google and Apple, you can do that almost immediately, depending on who your enterprise partner is. So it's going to take some time for each of the enterprises, whether it be your employer or one of your social platforms, to embrace that. But I would imagine over the next year or two, the majority of the online platforms will accept that as their primary means of authentication. In terms of our service, where we're allowing for the cloud-based biometrics, we plan to have our service live in the next 3 to 4 months.
Yep.
And we're rolling out as a pilot in beta mode, and then maybe 3 months after that, I would imagine, we'll have it go live.
So can people express interest in the product now? Are you
bet they
collecting
can. Yeah.
people's names and
Are you
addresses?
guys signed up?
We will be on
I've got to play with it. It's really cool. I've been part of the testing. It's been really fun. It's really cool actually. Testing generating a 3D map of a person's face to map it against a piece of ID. It might be like a driver's license or something like that.
Yeah, really? That's right. Yeah. What's key there is 2 things. Linking it back to what's called the identity proofing step, right? So supplying your passport, your driver's license, whatever it might be, and we then proof that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the second piece is knowing that you are live and present in the moment. So that's called user liveness. So every time you're authenticating yourself with your face or your voice, behind the scenes, we're doing a test that you are live and present, and it's not someone pretending to holding up a picture of someone. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think you can ever get away from people backing up their identity with that document?
Well, I think what we can get away from is the need to do that on a regular basis.
Sure.
The idea of a digital identity is you can do that, every time you renew your license, for example, or renew your passport, you authenticate that online, and then that is your identity proofing for the next period of time until you have to do it again in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever the rules state.
Sure. Yeah, because there are. Sorry, guys. I was just going to say there are different approaches to digital identity, like government-sponsored ones. I think there's a UN standard as well, but mostly those are document-based approaches, aren't they? And they're not a biometric system.
That's right, and I mean, it's understandable that the government is a little bit slow to adopt biometrics because they're naturally concerned about some of the security risks associated with it, and so we're very much at the cutting edge in terms of implementing those protections in terms of user liveness, in terms of the identity proofing pieces. But when you have those additional features, it actually becomes a much safer and less fraud-prone method than what we have at the moment in terms of verifying our identity.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
One last comment I will say. Sorry, you asked the question. can people sign up?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so go to info@truth.id. Truth is with 2 U's.
Yes.
The reason for the 2 U's is that we are going to have an NFT, and it's going to be called a universal unit, a UU, and therefore
Okay.
Truth has 2 U's.
Nice. Okay, so you heard it here first. Again, another world first. That's 2 in one program. Doesn't get any better than that, does it? No. Mike, thank you very much indeed
Pleasure.
for coming
Yes.
along.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it, and good luck with Truth. We're going to be following what you're doing, and we're also going to be signing up to be early adopters.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to check that out.
Excellent. Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Good. So look, we're drawing to a close. Just wanted to follow up on a couple of things from last week, or the last show. You may remember we did this survey looking at migration of people out of the city centres or out of the main conurbations as a result of the COVID lockdown. And we put a little survey up on LinkedIn and got a huge response to it. It got nearly 2,000 responses. But the interesting thing is that the proportion of people who are likely to move out as a result of, and want to move out as a result of the last 12 months hasn't changed. So it's around about 62% of our sample say that they expect to be moving out of the cities and to work remotely, and for that to be their norm. And then, Luke, we saw some research from Microsoft just today, which was kind of backing that up, actually saying it was higher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, Microsoft found they had a bigger number for that, didn't they?
They did, about 3,000.
Something like that, yeah. But a higher percentage as well.
Oh, 72%.
Yeah. So even more people, which is quite interesting. So there's like a big signal coming from the people who are doing the work. Like, yes, we would like to continue like having the option to work from home, not necessarily all the time. Because I think the number for people who want to be full-time remote is a bit smaller than that. But yeah, like that 60 to 70% of people would like to have the option of doing it like reasonably regularly. But also there was another report from KPMG published not so long ago, a week or two ago I think, saying that CEOs are scaling back plans to cut down on office space. Because there was this big move to remote work and everybody was thinking, well, gee, we've got these offices, it's got to keep the power on and do the maintenance and the upkeep of all this space, and nobody's using it. So last year, about 70% of CEOs, large organisations, was thinking, boy, we better get rid of some office space. And now it's only something like 17%.
Wow. So it's really dropped back.
It's really wound back,
Yeah.
And so again, I think there's a big expectation that regardless of that 60 to 70% of people wanting to work from home more often,
Sure. And
they'll be asked to come into the office.
One of the factors that's driving this is something that was picked up in that Microsoft report again, which was one of the biggest fears that organisations had as a result of people working to work remotely was that it would slow down innovation. And it has. So according to this Microsoft study, one of the 7 things they said were being negatively impacted by people working from home was the pace of innovation had dramatically slowed in the last 6 months. And the number of new projects that were starting up, the number of new ideas that companies were working on was reducing, which might kind of point to that fact that you've just mentioned, Luke, that they're thinking, well, perhaps we do need to keep some office space so that people can come together and we've got an opportunity to keep the collaboration and innovation going at the same pace that it was going during the height of the COVID crisis.
Absolutely.
I think it's something that's, it's obvious that everyone kind of wants. No one wants to come into the office every single day, or a majority of people don't want to, judging by the stats.
Yeah.
But they still need like that connection with their co-workers, and it's obviously you're never going to get that creative environment, sitting in your dungeon at home. By getting people together on a whiteboard or whatever, you can't get that
sticky
really.
notes around.
Yeah.
Good.
So I reckon it's a pretty exciting future. For
absolutely.
I'm happy with that way of working anyway.
Well, you've always done it that way. That's the thing. So it's not new to you. Anyway, we must wrap up. Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Jason. Thank you for listening. All of the topics that we've covered on the show today will, of course, be followed up online by Digital Village. And if you guys have got any queries or questions, please get in contact with us and let us know. We also want to hear from you on topics
that you would like us to cover in the next show. So don't be shy. We'd like to hear from you. You can go onto our website and connect to us that way. The next show is going to be in 3 weeks' time on the 28th of April. And we actually don't have any topics of that yet, guys, so we're going to have to do some work.
Well, I think one of the topics we were looking at is the digital economy,
Yes.
which we nearly got onto today. I was keen to chat with Mike about his thoughts around non-personal data and how, but maybe for
Another
for next
time.
time,
Okay.
next month maybe.
Sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
good. Okay, so it's goodbye from Luke,
Ciao.
goodbye from Jason,
Bye everyone. See you
goodbye
next
from
month.
Mike,
Bye.
and goodbye from me. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
very
See you
much,
next time.
guys.